Hello, digital creatives. This is the tutorial for Creative Challenge number 2, which is our Opie influenced self-portraits. So on an iPad, I'm on the school iPad here. You want to open up Fresco, and what you're going to do is you would just going to click Create New down here in the bottom left. You could choose the size you want. I think sometimes the squares is easier. We're going to be up here digital. You have an opportunity to do print or digital, but considering we're going to be in digital, just do digital, and I think a square is fine, and you're going to get their blank canvas. This is what Fresco kind of looks like. So let me give you a little overview of Fresco. On the left side, you have your tools, different kinds of brushes, the fill bucket, the eyedropper, which is kind of a color picker, the ability, your photograph, which is below the eyedropper, and couple other tools. On the right are your layers. So you have 2 layers at the moment. If you click a layer, you have the ability to hide it, delete it, duplicate it, all kinds of stuff. Layers are your friend. If you want to add a layer, that little plus button on the right adds a layer. And you're going to be turning layers off and on. Is you could click that little eye next to the add layer button. Click that, that'll hide layers and not hide layers. These brushes, if on the top left, if you hold the brushes, these are pixel brushes, which are very similar to what you'll see in Photoshop. All kinds of things to mess around with. The FX brushes are pretty fun too. If you wanted to do like clouds, it'll do clouds for you. I'm gonna get rid of that. My undo button's up on top. We're not going to use the pixel brush a whole lot today unless you really wanted to mess with that later. What we're going to use is some of these live brushes, which are super powerful. You have both watercolor and oil. In watercolor, I'm going to choose the wash. Here, I'll show you what it looks like. If I click the color picker, I can take the outside ring and change it, and then let's see, we'll go for kind of that color. Right below here, this is the size of the brush. I can adjust the size. This is the opacity. And this is the flow, water flow. How much water flow do I want? So if I want a lot of water flow, as I'm brushing, let's see, make sure I'm on the right spot here. You'll see how it kind of continues to expand, like the paper soaking up the water. And if I turn around and change the color a little bit, we'll make a nice dark red. You'll see as they're interacting, they kind of, if I have no water flow to more water flow. And you could see there's all kinds of things you could do with this if you wanted to blend together. Now that's your watercolor brushes. You could experiment. You could also hit this back button here and go to oil. If oil brushes, and this, if we zoom in, you kind of see it looks like a brush. And actually, if you keep going, the brush will like run out of ink eventually. And it's a live brush, so if you're going to go into these colors, you can color blend with the live brush, just as if you were using real paint on a canvas. So those are your live brushes. Now we're going to go over here. I'm just going to delete that layer. Add a layer. Below us are the vector brushes, and these are what we're going to use initially. Vector is created like with Illustrator. A vector is infinitely scalable. It's actually a mathematical formula that creates the line. A pixel brush, literally you're painting pixels on a screen, and it will pixelate if you zoom in. But for the vector brushes, which is what we're going to use at the beginning, just makes lines, and you can adjust the size, smaller or bigger, and how smooth you want it. And then there's also, if you go down here at the bottom, how round or angle. You have all kinds of other settings that you could kind of mess around with. Okay, so that's kind of your overview of Fresco here. Let me delete this layer. The powerful thing about Fresco, and this is, I'm not a huge artist in terms of, I'm not classically trained as an artist, but I could trace things. So if you click the camera button here and you open and go to photos, we talk to you that you need a picture, and I'm going to import this. I'm going to blow this up a little bit so it takes up most of the canvas. All right, and then up here I'm going to click done on the top right. And now this photo is a layer in my my Fresco drawing here, and I could use that as a reference, and I could use 2 fingers to expand or contract, I guess. So if I want to be up here, so what we want you to do is you're going to go up here to a layer. I'm going to make sure I'm on a vector brush, and I'm just going to use a basic round brush. Also want it probably about this big, and I'm going to trace the outlines of my face. All right, now I'm going to do the hair separate. You'll see why in a second. There's my ear. I'm going to do the other ears over here. I could zoom in a little bit. That's kind of scary, and I could do my eye if I want. Oh, so that didn't go over too well, so I could just hit back. Now, also, if you look at this little dot on the bottom left, this guy down here, if I hold that and I have the brush on, it will erase, which is super handy when you're doing things. So if I mess up, I could hold that down and just erase instead of having to go back and undo things. So it really does help you. What you might want to do once you get to some of the finer features is make your brush a little bit smaller. Now I could kind of get little eyes. Move over here. I'm going to do this eye. And then kind of shapes for the nose. And Opie does usually just one line for the chin, but you can mess around with that. I got eyebrows right there. I do my neckline. I could do the line of the shirt. Make sure I finish that off. I could also want to do the collar. I could do my collar. Okay, now if I turn off, if I go down here and I select the layer with the photo on it and I click the eyedrop, you could see like, oh, that is not half bad. And I could finish that off if I want to. So now I could turn that off and on, and you'll see like, yeah, all right, I got to have a half decent outline of myself. And I did it very quickly. So that's the first thing we want you to do is do with a vector brush, do an outline of the face. It'll be a pretty basic outline. Now we need to fill it in with color. All right, so I'm going to turn this thing back on, and I'm going to add a layer, and I'm going to take this, I'm going to pick it up, I'm going to drag it in between those 2 layers. So I want the outline on top, and I am going to select, and we'll do the hair first here. Doesn't matter what order you go in. And I'm going to create a mask. So the tool that I use is this tool right here on the left. It's got the little dancing ants. And I'm going to trace this black line, the hairline, and I connect down and get these little dancing ants, and that's a selection. All right. So now I want to tell that selection, I'm going to fill it with a color. So I'm going to click the paint bucket, which is a fill. I don't know right now if I select it here, it's black, because black is the color that is chosen down here on my left. But if I click the ink dropper, I get the color selecting. Now I could come over, I can grab this thing, and wherever the bottom of it is, you'll kind of see where the bottom is, and then where that little X is, that is going to be the color it's trying to grab. Now, of course, I'm getting old. My hair is all turning grayish, so it's not going to be perfect, but I can, that is reddish. I then can go touch the color picker. I could fine tune it and want to pretend like I have more orange hair like I used to. All right. Once that's selected, I can click the fill button, go back to the fill button, and I collect the selection. And how would you want to fill this layer? I want to fill it with pixels. And it's filled. I'm going to go down to the bottom here and click deselect. And now if we hide the picture, you see, all right, I got some red hair on there. And that is the process. We do this process over and over again. So I'm going to do a new layer. Doesn't matter if it, as long as it's below your main outline, I'm going to hit the select button. I'm going to do my face, which is pretty red, right? And I'm going to go here to select a color. Let's pick a skin color here. I'm happy with that skin color. I'm going to go to the paint bucket. I'm going to touch the selection. I'm going to fill that with that color. And away I go. Then I hit deselect. Now, if I wanted to do my eyes a separate color, I'm going to have to add a layer. And I'm going to touch this face layer here, and I could hide it. And I could zoom in, and I can go and I can make a selection. And I want this to be white, I think. Pretty white. And make sure what just happened is I was still on my face layer, so I want to make sure I'm on the right layer. Select that blank layer. I'm going to fill that with white. And away I go. So you're going to do this over and over again until you're happy with the fill that you got going. Hit deselect. And you'll have your finished Opie-like portrait. You could fine tune if I want to go in here, and depends on how perfectionistic you want to be. If you don't want to have, if I want to fine tune this, I could select this layer, select my vector brush, make sure I'm on the right color, and I could paint this in. So you have that ability to kind of fine tune this if you want. It's up to you. Okay. So when you're all done with this, and you've done this over and over and over again, and you're happy, you'll have a finished product. I'll show you mine. You are going to click this publish and export, and you can export as a PNG file. And you can hit export, and then you're going to want to save that image onto the iPad's roll. You could then take that image and put it into Google Classroom. I think you have the ability. I don't think you have the ability to. This does link to Classroom. So if you really wanted to be on it, you can export directly from Fresco into Google Classroom yourself. To show you, because I don't want this to take forever. This is an example of one I did yesterday, and you get an idea what the finished product can look like. Nothing crazy, right? But hopefully you'll enjoy it. And again, we're focusing on the lines and then filling in with the colors. Watch this again if you need to, and then we'll talk you through it again on the class on Friday. Look forward to seeing you guys on Friday.